Hey, Eric here, DmaxStore. Today we're going to be installing our XD tie rods. Everything that you're going to need to install these heavy-duty tie rods is laying out right in front of us. The factory tie rod is going to need a 40 millimeter. You're going to need a 2-inch tape measure. You need a 21 socket, obviously a persuasion device to get said tie rod off knuckle. Impact of your choice, take off the wheel, and also to take the nut off the tie rod to the knuckle. All right, so most of you aren't going to have access to a hoist. We do, and it's also great for filming purposes. That way the cameraman doesn't have to lay down. So we're going to go ahead and get the wheel off. Obviously, first things first. If you're doing this on your garage floor or in your driveway, make sure you use suitable jack stands. All right, now you can see that basically we have 2 connection points. Okay, these are tapered. The knuckle is tapered as well. The taper goes in on your factory knuckle from the bottom. All right, the 21 on the nut. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Now we're gonna grab our persuader. A lot of times it doesn't need a whole lot. You can just kind of give it a couple of smacks and then pops right out. We're gonna get down here with this 40 millimeter wrench and break these loose. Oh, there we go. This is your stock tie rod. This is now the updated XD tie rod from DmaxStore. This is going to be a huge improvement in strength and mobility of the front end component. All right, now for measuring, you want to make sure your tie rod joints are straight as they can be. So what I like to do is basically you can use the Zerk as a center point, because sometimes you kind of question where your end is right here. You know, they're pretty much centered. So you can use the Zerk fitting as a center point, and then you're going to go to the flange of the inner tie rod joint. And we're like about 16. I'm going to flex this because it's a little bit. So we're 16 and 1/8. All right, so now we can go to this guy, the new one. And we're going to have to add a little bit here. No big deal. This guy goes in there quite a ways. So let's just spin this out a ways. See where we're at. Still a bit more. All right, we're about 16 and 1/8 from the center of my Zerk to the flange of this guy. I'm going to give it just a quarter turn. All right, now we're money. Now we're going to just take this jam nut and snug it up by hand right now. So we're going to install this. First, we're going to get some Loctite on the end of this guy. This is blue Loctite, similar to what the factory uses on their install on the tie rods. All right, so get this guy in here. It's pretty simple, straightforward. Just make sure you can wiggle it around a little bit and it'll start on threading in. Make sure you keep your jam nut pretty tight. All right. Now we're gonna get that 2-inch wrench. And you can still get your wrench around these Zerk fittings because there's plenty of material on the outside edge of this hex. But do be careful you don't use your Zerk fittings as a leverage point. Because they will work, see? If you're worried about it, you can pop them out if you like, but just take your time, you'll be fine. All right, that sucker's tight. So you're gonna want to torque this. I mean, I'm using elbow torque spec right now, but it's like 100 foot-pounds. So, you know, you got a big wrench like this. any kind of leverage on it, you're gonna get torqued. You're gonna wanna install this right back in the same direction as your factory tie rod. The taper goes in on your factory knuckle from the bottom. Make sure it's seated in there nice and tight. That's what's gonna hold it in there. Most of this force is not from the nut holding it in, but the taper seat in your knuckle. So if you're trying to tighten it up and you don't have another wrench up here, you can kind of tap it with a dead blow to seat that taper again. If you're trying to use a socket, also you can be very careful not to damage the finish on your tie rod, and just give it a little upward pressure. That'll help seat the taper and you can tighten your nut. But we're gonna actually tighten this down using the provided hex on the top. 10 millimeter on the top. Well, make sure you get your wrench in there. We're gonna use a ratcheting wrench because I have one. You're gonna hold that, which is gonna keep the shaft from spinning. This is a good way to get your workout in for the day. Okay, we got it pretty tight. Now I'm gonna go grab a socket and a torque wrench. All right, so the torque spec for this guy is 48 foot-pounds, so 48. So now that you've got that pretty snug with the 10 and your 21 millimeter wrench, the seat and the taper's set. So, all right, we're there. We've now got everything torqued and installed. We want to go back and snug up your jam nut, real, more secure, so it doesn't come loose on the way to your favorite alignment facility. So that's what we did on the passenger side. Guess what? You're going to do the exact same thing on the driver's side. It is real straightforward, easy process, and you can find these XD tie rods at DmaxStore.com.